You know that feeling when someone just disappears? No explanation, no goodbye, just silence. It's one of the most confusing experiences we go through, and it leaves us wondering what we did wrong. Ghosting usually isn't about you at all. Most people who ghost aren't trying to be cruel. They're trying to avoid something that feels impossible to face. A difficult conversation. And if we're honest with ourselves, we can probably understand why. Think about the last time you had to tell someone something they didn't want to hear. Maybe you had to end a friendship that wasn't working, or let someone down, or admit you weren't interested anymore. That pit in your stomach, the mental rehearsal of what to say, the fear of seeing their face change. It's exhausting just thinking about it. Now imagine someone who's never developed the skills to handle that discomfort. For them, every difficult conversation feels like standing on the edge of a cliff. And ghosting? That's the escape hatch. When someone chooses to ghost, their brain is doing a cost-benefit analysis. Except the costs are wildly exaggerated, and the benefits are completely imaginary. The cost of having the conversation feels enormous. They imagine worst-case scenarios. The person will hate them. There'll be drama. They'll have to explain themselves over and over. They'll be made to feel guilty. Or worse, they might change their mind and feel trapped. The benefit of ghosting seems clear. Immediate relief. No confrontation. No tears. No anger. Just nothing. Peace. Except it's not actually peace. It's avoidance. And deep down, they probably know that. But in the moment, the illusion of peace wins. Some people grew up in homes where conflict was either explosive or completely avoided. They never learned that difficult conversations can be handled with kindness. They never saw examples of people disagreeing respectfully and still caring about each other afterward. Picture a child watching their parents either scream at each other or give each other the silent treatment for days. What does that child learn? That conflict equals pain, danger, or disconnection. So they grow up doing everything possible to avoid it. Or consider someone who was raised in a home where they were always expected to keep the peace, to not rock the boat, to make everyone else comfortable. They learned that their job was to be agreeable, not honest. So when it's their turn to navigate something uncomfortable, they simply don't have the tools. It's not an excuse, but it is an explanation. They're operating with a blueprint that never included how to end things with kindness. There's also this. Difficult conversations are unpredictable. You can't control how the other person will react. They might cry. They might get angry. They might try to change your mind. They might make you feel guilty or question your decision. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone wants to end a relationship with a friend who's been draining them emotionally. They know they need to do it. But they also know this friend has been going through a hard time. So they start thinking, what if they break down? What if they ask me to explain exactly what they did wrong? What if they promise to change? What if I'm the only person they have right now? Each question adds another layer of dread. The conversation starts to feel like something that requires a perfect script, perfect timing, perfect conditions. And since none of those things exist, they keep putting it off. Days turn into weeks, and eventually, it feels easier to just disappear. For someone who struggles with boundaries or standing firm in their choices, that uncertainty is terrifying. Ghosting feels like a way to maintain control, to make a decision and stick to it without having to defend it. Something interesting. Many people who ghost actually convince themselves they're doing it for the other person's benefit. They tell themselves things like, "It's better if I just fade away. They'll move on faster." Or, "If I tell them the truth, it'll just hurt them more." Or, "They'll be fine. They probably don't even care that much anyway." It's a way of reframing cowardice as compassion. But the logic doesn't hold up. Because think about it. When has being left in confusion ever been better than getting a clear answer? When has wondering, "What did I do wrong?" ever been easier than hearing, "This isn't working for me"?
The person being ghosted doesn't get to move on cleanly. They get to sit with questions that have no answers. They get to replay every interaction, looking for clues they missed. They get to feel rejected without understanding why. So no, ghosting isn't protection. It's protection for the person doing it, not the person receiving it. And let's be real. Our digital world has made ghosting easier than ever. You don't have to see someone's face. You don't have to hear their voice crack. You can just stop responding, block them, move on with your life while they're left staring at their phone, wondering what happened. Think about how relationships used to end. You had to actually avoid someone in person, which took effort. You might run into them at the grocery store or at a mutual friend's gathering. There was natural accountability built into communities. Now, you can end things with someone you've been dating for months without ever having to see them again. You can cut off a friendship without any explanation. The same technology that connects us has made it incredibly easy to disconnect without any real accountability. The easier something becomes, the more normalized it gets. Ghosting isn't just happening because people are cowards. It's happening because our environment has removed almost all the barriers that used to make it difficult. What a lot of people don't realize is that ghosting doesn't just affect the person being ghosted. It affects the person doing it too. Every time you ghost someone instead of having a difficult conversation, you're reinforcing a pattern. You're teaching yourself that avoidance works, that you don't have to face uncomfortable things, that other people's feelings are less important than your comfort. And over time, that starts to affect all your relationships. You become someone who runs when things get hard, someone who can't be relied on for honesty, someone who prioritizes short-term relief over long-term integrity. Plus, there's usually guilt. Even if someone successfully ghosts and never has to face the person again, they often carry that guilt around. They know what they did wasn't right. They know they took the coward's way out. And that knowledge sits in the back of their mind, especially when they encounter situations where they're on the receiving end. Now, I want to be clear about something. There are times when ghosting is the right choice. If someone is abusive, manipulative, or dangerous, you don't owe them a conversation. If someone has repeatedly violated your boundaries or made you feel unsafe, protecting yourself by cutting off contact without explanation is completely valid. There's a big difference between ghosting someone because you don't want to deal with discomfort and removing yourself from a harmful situation. But in most cases, in the everyday relationships where ghosting happens most, it's not about safety. It's about convenience. If you've been ghosted, I want you to know something. The silence says more about the other person's capacity for difficult emotions than it does about your worth. You deserved a conversation.
You deserved closure. The fact that someone couldn't give you that is their limitation, not your failing. What might help? Stop looking for the reason in your behavior. Stop replaying every conversation trying to figure out what you did wrong. Because chances are, you didn't do anything wrong. You just crossed paths with someone who doesn't know how to use their words when things get uncomfortable. Their inability to communicate isn't a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their emotional capacity at that point in their life. And if you're someone who ghosts, maybe you're watching this and recognizing yourself. Maybe you've ghosted people and you feel some shame about it. That's okay. Awareness is the first step. Having difficult conversations gets easier with practice. It never becomes comfortable. It shouldn't be comfortable to hurt someone or end something that mattered. But you can learn to sit with that discomfort and do it anyway, because the people in your life deserve honesty. You can learn to say, "This isn't working for me anymore," or "I don't think we're a good match," or "I need to step back from this friendship." These sentences won't kill you, even though they might feel like they will. Once you start having these conversations, you realize they're rarely as bad as you imagined. Most people, when treated with honesty and respect, respond better than you'd think. They might be hurt, yes, but they also appreciate the honesty. They get to have closure. They get to move forward with clarity instead of confusion. If you struggle with difficult conversations, start small. Practice saying no to small things. Practice expressing mild disagreement. Practice setting small boundaries. You don't have to go from zero to having a breakup conversation overnight, but you can start building the muscle of discomfort tolerance. You can start proving to yourself that uncomfortable conversations don't actually destroy you. And when it comes time for a bigger conversation, you'll have a foundation to stand on. At the end of the day, ghosting is a symptom of a culture that's become increasingly uncomfortable with discomfort. We want everything to be easy, smooth, conflict-free. But real relationships, the meaningful ones, require us to be brave enough to be honest, even when it's hard. Some people ghost because they never learned how to do hard things. Some do it because they're protecting themselves from feelings they can't handle. And some do it because, in that moment, they're choosing the path that feels easiest for them, without considering the person left behind. Understanding why someone ghosts doesn't make it hurt less. But maybe it can help you stop taking it so personally. Because their silence isn't your story. It's theirs. And if you're someone who's working on being braver in your conversations, who's choosing honesty over avoidance, who's learning to sit with discomfort, that matters. That's the kind of person who builds real, lasting connections. That's the kind of person people can trust.